Hello and welcome to Regal Fare. I'm Chef Ian Bromstead, and today I'm going to show you how to make some simple and elegant dishes, just like we make at some of the finest restaurants in this country. Today we're going to make an endive salad with prosciutto, peaches, and mint. We're going to make a potato gnocchi with morel mushrooms and asparagus, and then we're going to make a mascarpone and raspberry tart with candied lemon. So right away we can start by making our pastry crust for our mascarpone tart. So here I have 1 cup of flour, and I have 2/3 of a cup of butter. This has just been diced and it's cold, so I'm just going to add this right to the flour, and I'm just going to start mixing it right into the flour. I'm going to add a little bit of salt right at this stage too. Basically what we're trying to do here is we want to mix all the butter into the flour, and we want to get all the butter to what they call pea size. So we just want to get all the butter covered in the flour, and then we're just going to start breaking up the butter into the flour so that we have an even distribution of little bits of butter in the flour. So what that's going to do later is that's going to create little pockets and layers of butter in the pastry crust, and it's going to make for a nice, tender, and flaky crust. So once this is all incorporated and we have all of our butter mixed down nicely into little pea-sized bits, we can go ahead and start adding in some of our liquid. So for today, for the liquid, I'm going to add 1 egg and a little bit of water. So there are a lot of variables when it comes to how much liquid we're going to have to add. I usually like to say for this size recipe about 1/4 cup of water, but the size of the egg, the ambient humidity in the air, and the amount of water that's in the butter are going to ultimately decide how much water we're going to add to this. So now that we have all of our butter and our flour incorporated together, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start mixing in our liquids. So I have 1 egg yolk here, and we're going to add just a little bit of water to it, just plain water. About 1/4 cup should do it, but again, we're going to have to feel this one out. So I'm just mixing a little bit of water in the egg so that we can mix the egg nicely into the dough. And we're just going to add a little pool right in the center. And then we're just going to start folding this together. And basically there's going to become clumps of dough, and as they clump up, just like we have here, we're going to start lifting them out. So that's one. We can add a little more of our liquid. Again, we keep mixing just to get that little bit of liquid together to get it to a nice dough consistency. And you'll see immediately that little balls of dough start forming right around where you put the water in. And that consistency is generally good for the finished dough. And we can go ahead and finish with just a little bit of water here. So now that we have all of our dough completed, we can just get this right out onto the work surface, and we can start to mix our dough. You don't want to mix it too much, because the more you mix it, the more it's going to develop a bread-like quality. So ideally, we just really want to get all these ingredients mixed together just enough so that it holds into a dough. And if we need to add a little more flour, or if we need to add a little more liquid, we can. Basically, the consistency of the dough that collects on your fingers is generally a good consistency for the rest of the dough, so you can use that as a guideline. So now we have a nice little ball of dough here, and we can add a little bit more flour all on the work surface just to make it a little easier to handle. So now we can flatten this out, adding a little more flour as we go. It helps keep the dough from sticking to the counter, and it makes it just a little easier to work with. So now that we have 1 big piece of pastry dough, we can go ahead and roll this nice and thin. A little more flour will help keep the dough from sticking to the rolling pin and the counter. So now that we have 1 perfect little piece right here, we'll just cut this out and we'll lay it right into our tart shell. So I'll just cut it here, and we can save this dough for the next tart. For this recipe, I'll just make this one. We have 1 nice little square of tart dough. We can go ahead and layer it right onto our tart shell. Just pressing to make sure that it goes down all the little corners. And now that we have it nicely packed into our mold, we can just take our rolling pin and cut the dough. And that'll create a nice little tart shell full of dough. So we have this little guy all nice and full. And we can take some dried baking beans, and we can just lay them in here. What these baking beans do is they keep the base of the tart shell from puffing up, so that we have a nice flat bottom, so we can fill fill this nice and full when we go to fill it. So I'm just going to pop this guy into a 350-degree oven for about 10 minutes, just until it's golden brown. We're going to clean up and we'll come right back and make our mascarpone filling. So we're back. We have our pastry shell cooking in the oven, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to start our candied lemon and make our mascarpone filling. So to make our candied lemon, I'm just going to start by adding a little bit of sugar to this pan. Let's say 2 tablespoons is enough. And then we're going to add just a little bit of water. Now I've taken these lemon zests and I've julienned them and I've blanched them 3 times in separate changes of water. What that does is it helps take a little bit of the bitterness out so that when we go to candy these, they'll be nothing but sweet. So we can just get these cooking right in here, and we're going to let these cook for about 25 minutes, and we're just going to let them cook so that they become nice and tender and just have a little bit of sweetness. To make some really nice little candied lemon zest. Just to make these, all I did was I took a peeler and just took a little peel off like this, just so that there is no pith on the inside of the lemon, and then I just quickly and easily julienne them. And you can cut these into any shape you want. Really that's up to you. So as these are cooking, we're going to go ahead and we're going to prepare our mascarpone filling. And to do that, we're going to start by whipping some heavy cream that I have here. So we just need to whip this until it's thick. Nice and cold, should whip pretty quickly. You can see it comes whipped thick pretty quickly. So now that we have our heavy cream whipped, it's starting to form little peaks, we can go ahead and we can start to fold in our mascarpone. So we can take a nice generous dollop of the mascarpone cheese, add that right to it. We're going to add about 1.5 teaspoons of sugar and just a little bit of vanilla extract. That's all we really need to do for this filling. And just stir to incorporate all these items. Now we have a nice thick, rich, tart shell filling. So we can go ahead, and what I like to do with this is get this right into a pastry bag. I like to use a pastry bag. It really makes this process of getting the filling into the shell a lot easier. So we can just go ahead and get the tip nicely snug in the bottom of the pastry bag, and I'm going to take this little bucket here and use this just to make a nice, easy way to get all this filling right in here. So we can just take all this filling, just put it right in our bag so that when our pastry shell is done, we can just pipe this in nice and easily. So our lemon zests have another 10 or 15 minutes to go here. We're just going to let those cook while our pastry shell is finishing. Our mascarpone cream is ready to go. We're just going to let our tart shell finish baking and cool, and we're going to get started on our potato gnocchi. Okay, and we're back. We're going to go ahead and get right into making our potato gnocchi. I have 3 russet potatoes that I poked with holes and baked in the oven. They're nice and hot straight out of the oven. That's going to make this process a lot easier. So I'm just going to split these guys right in half. All 3 of them. And we're going to get them right into our ricer. Our ricer is going to make this whole process nice and easy. So we're just going to scoop out the cooked potato right into the food mill. So all these guys can go right in. It's really important that we want to take these straight out of the oven and go right into the ricer. So we can see that there's more liquid escaping from the potatoes. You can see the steam that's rising off. What's actually happening is that the moisture in the potato is coming out, which is a good thing because we don't want to have a lot of moisture, because if we do, what's ultimately going to end up happening is we're going to have to add more flour. And the more flour we add, the less it's going to taste like potato. So we're just going to go ahead and scoop all these guys out right into the food mill. And we can just start milling these potatoes right onto the work surface here. So this is a very old technique. This is one of the older Italian pasta recipes. It's very simple. There's really only going to be 2 ingredients. We're just going to add a little bit of flour and a little bit of potato. That's going to be the whole recipe. It's very, very dependent upon the technique here. So all these 2 ingredients need to do is come together nice and gently. We'll be able to make some beautiful potato gnocchis. So put all the potato in. So So now that we have all this nice hot potato right on the counter, you can see all this steam is still escaping. We're losing that liquid that's ultimately going to make it a little denser. This is going to absorb more flour. So now that we have the hot potato on the counter, I'm just going to actually take my bench knife and I'm going to cool the potatoes down slightly, because we want the potatoes to be hot when they come out of the oven so that the steam escapes. But when we add the flour, we don't want them to be too hot and they would cook the flour. So I'm just going to go ahead and start sprinkling on some of this flour here. Just one nice even layer right over the top. Just like that. And then we're going to start chopping the flour in there. So what this does is it mixes the flour and the potato together without actually working it and letting the flour develop gluten or keeping the potatoes from getting gummy. So with this chopping of the flour, it really makes for a nice light gnocchi. So we can go ahead and do one more addition of flour. And we can chop this in. So now that those two additions of flour are mixed into the potato, we can go ahead and start bringing it all together and start forming our dough. We're just going to want to bring this together nice and tight in a little pile. We can start pressing it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start forming it into a dough. Now this is feeling pretty dry, but we're going to need just a little bit more liquid or a little bit more flour, and we can go ahead and just sprinkle on a little bit more. Now the best way I found to start bringing the dough together is just start folding it like this. And you can feel in the palm of your hand how moist the dough is. And if it's still sticky, we're going to want to add a little more flour. It's still just a little sticky, so we'll add just a little more flour. And again, we're going to fold and fold. We're just going to keep doing this until we have a nice, consistent dough. And you can see that most of the flour is incorporated into the potato, and we're starting to have a nice, smooth dough. Just a little bit more flour, and this is all done. So we can go ahead and set this aside and get this right into a nice little ball and set this right here to rest. And one little ball of gnocchi dough. So we can set that guy right here, let him rest, and we can clean this work surface up and get our potato out of the way. And we want to let the gnocchi dough rest for a few moments, ideally 10 minutes. We don't really want to go longer than that because the crust of the dough will get a little crusty and it'll start to create cracks in the surface of the dough. So just move this out of the way. So go ahead and start rolling this. So I'm just going to break this into thirds, and then we can just start rolling it into little logs. So we have these little logs here. A log. Move this guy up. Make another log. Just roll one more little log here, and then we can get started on our sauce. So our sauce today, we're going to make a little mushroom and asparagus sauce, and we're going to use a little bit of heavy cream and some Parmesan. So now we can go ahead and start the sauce for our gnocchi. We're just going to take a little bit of extra virgin olive oil, and we're going to take some of these beautiful morel mushrooms. These come to us today from Oregon. We're just going to saute them very gently in this olive oil, nicely heated. So we're going to let those go ahead and roast for just a few moments, and we can go ahead and chop our gnocchi. So I just want to get a little bit of flour on the surface of the gnocchi so that they're nice and easy to roll. They won't get stuck together. So we can bring these down here now that they're nicely covered. And we can just bring these right here. And we can just start chopping. We're going to cut these into like 3/4 inch long little pieces. Just like this. Nice and easy. They don't need to be perfect. The sort of the rustic feel of a gnocchi is that they're not perfect machine-made little pastas. So now that we have all these cut, we can go ahead and add some asparagus to these roasted mushrooms. So we're just going to let this asparagus roast right in here in this olive oil. We can add some cracked black pepper. And we can start to add some of our other aromatics. We can start to add these shaved shallots. Get these guys incorporated in here. We can add a little bit of our shaved garlic. And we can go ahead and add our heavy cream. This will make a really nice rich sauce for the gnocchi. Just like that. So now that we have our sauce reducing, we can go ahead and drop our gnocchis. So we can just take all these guys and just drop them right into boiling salted water. Get all these guys in. And these really won't need very long. Really the idea with how long to cook the gnocchi is just until they float. So these should only need another 45 seconds, another minute. Our sauce is looking really nice, creamy. We can go ahead and bring our plate over because this is almost ready. So just as soon as this sauce starts to get a little thick, we can go ahead and add our gnocchi and our cheese. We're going to add a little bit of Parmesan Reggiano cheese. And we're going to do that as soon as this cream has just come down just a little bit further. It's still a little loose, it's still a little liquidish. So we can just go ahead and let this cook for just another few moments. And very soon this will be a nice thick, creamy sauce. So you can see here our gnocchi are just starting to come up to the top. As soon as they start to float, they're ready. Almost ready on all these. So we can take our piece of Parmesan Reggiano cheese. It's a delicious Italian cheese. And this sauce is just about there. You can see that it's starting to develop a real body to it. It's having a real thickness. And our gnocchis are just ready. So we can take these out. Let the water drain off because we are trying to make a thick sauce here. All these come out. And we can just toss the coat. So these are basically done. We're just going to add a little bit of the grated Parmesan Reggiano cheese. And just plate this in our bowl. And there we have our potato gnocchi with morel mushrooms and asparagus. As soon as I have this plated, we'll go ahead and get cleaned up and we'll come right back and make our endive salad with prosciutto and peaches. And we're back and we can go ahead and start right away with making our endive salad with prosciutto, peaches, and mint. So first we're going to go ahead and start by making our vinaigrette. So we can add a little bit of this Dijon mustard right to the bowl. We can add just a little bit. We can add some of our grated or our minced shallot. We can grate just a little bit of garlic in here, a little bit of raw garlic. And then we can add some fresh squeezed lemon juice, a little bit of cracked black pepper, and we can whisk all these ingredients together. And we can start emulsifying a little bit of olive oil into this mixture. Very simple vinaigrette. So just very slowly, we're just going to want to add a little bit of olive oil at a time, just until this is a nice, thick, rich, creamy dressing. Olive oil will help balance out all the spiciness of the mustard and the acidity of the lemon, make a really nice dressing for these ingredients. So just like that, maybe we added 2 tablespoons of olive oil. So now that our dressing is finished, maybe a little more lemon juice. And we can go ahead and start adding our ingredients. So I have these beautiful endives here. We can just take some nice big thick spears and start adding them right into our salad. These are Belgian endives from the chicory family. Adds a really nice bitterness that goes along with the sweetness of the peaches and the saltiness of the prosciutto. So some just nice big thick pieces of peaches. These can go right in as well. So we can add just a little bit more peach here. I like a lot. Gives it a nice, the sweetness of the peaches really work well with the saltiness of the prosciutto and the bitterness of the endive. So about a half a peach. Then we can add some of this delicious watercress. Not too much. I want to highlight the peaches and the endive. We can chiffon out a little bit of this mint here. Nice big rustic chiffonade is nice. Mint, a little bit of salt, a little bit more pepper, and we can start to dress our salad. So just getting all of these ingredients covered in the dressing is going to make a really nice, sweet and tangy salad. So we can just start plating this, just arranging all the ingredients onto the plate. I like to do like one layer of all the ingredients, and then we can do a layer of the prosciutto. So now that we have a little bit of all this stuff down, one more peach here, we can add a little layer of the prosciutto. This is San Daniele prosciutto. This comes from Italy. It's a really amazing product. They aged this for almost 2 years. It's a really excellent ham. A few more endive spears, a few more peaches, a little more watercress, and then we can just go ahead and add some of these chopped hazelnuts. So here we have our endive salad with peaches, prosciutto, and mint. We'll be right back to present all our dishes. Okay, we're back, and we can go ahead and finish our mascarpone tart with raspberry and candied lemon. So our tart shell is baked. I took the baking beans out. I'm just going to put one little dot on the plate just to hold the tart shell in place while we finish it. So I can just slide this guy out of here very gently, place it on the plate. I'm just going to do one nice even layer of the mascarpone filling. And then we can just start arranging our raspberries. This is kind of the fun part here. There's no real rules as far as how we plate the raspberries. Just a couple more here. And that's our tart. So we can take just a little bit of this candied lemon and we can just put it right on top. So here we have the mascarpone tart with raspberries and candied lemon. And we have our potato gnocchi with our potato gnocchis that we made with just flour and potato that we sauteed with a little bit of fresh morel mushrooms and a little bit of these baby asparagus. And we made a sauce of Parmesan and heavy cream. And we have, to start our meal, we have our endive salad with prosciutto, mint, peaches, and hazelnut. So here we have a wonderful little early summer meal. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Regal Fare. I'm Chef Ian Bromstead.